Hello everyone, welcome to Spotlight Heaven. You'll be listening to the audiobook of Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is best if you are an entrepreneur or a new YouTuber and you think you're doing something wrong or this is very hard. Then listen to this audiobook and develop new habits to become a successful YouTuber or an entrepreneur.
Chapter 19, The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. In 1955, Disneyland has just opened in Anaheim, California, when a 10-year-old boy walked in and asked for a job. Labor laws were loose back then, and the boy managed to land a position selling guidebooks for 50 cents a piece. Within a year, he has transitioned to Disney's Magic Shop, where he learned tricks from the older employees. He experimented with jokes and tried out simple routines on visitors. Soon he discovered that what he loved was not performing magic, but performing in general. He set his sights on becoming a comedian. Beginning in his teenage years, he started performing in little clubs around Los Angeles. The crowd were small and his acts were short. He was rarely on stage for more than 5 minutes. Most of the people in the crowd were too busy drinking or talking with friends to pay attention. One night, he literally delivered his stand up routine to an empty club. Wasn't glamorous work, but there was no doubt he was getting better. His first routines would only last 1 or 2 minutes, but high school, his material has expanded to include a 5 minute act and a few years later, 10-minute show. 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes at a time. He had to read 3 poems during the show just to make the routine long enough, but his skills continued to progress. He spent another decade experimenting, adjusting, and practicing. He took a job as a television writer, and gradually he was able to land his own appearances on talk shows. By the mid 1970s, he had worked his way into being a regular guest on The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live. Finally, after nearly 15 years of work, the young man rose to fame. He toured 60 cities in 63 days, then 72 cities in 80 days, then 85 cities in 90 days. He had 18,695 people attend one show in Ohio. Another 45,000 tickets were sold for his 3-day show in New York. Catapulted to the top of his genre and become one of the most successful comedians of his time. His name is Steve Martin. Martin's story offers fascinating perspective on what it takes to stick with habits for a long run. Comedy is not for the timid. It is hard to imagine a situation that would strike fear into the hearts of more people than performing alone on stage and failing to get a single laugh. And yet, Steve Martin faced this fear every week for 18 years. His words: 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Why is it that some people, like Martin, stick with their habits, whether practicing jokes or drawing cartoons or playing guitar, while most of us struggle to stay motivated? How do we design habits that pull us in rather than ones that fade away? Scientists have been studying this question for many years. While there is still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire is to work on the task of just manageable difficulty. The human brain loves a challenge, but only if it is within optimal zone of difficulty. If you love tennis and try to play a serious match against a 4-year-old, you will quickly become bored. It's too easy. You will win every point. In contrast, if you play a professional tennis player like Roger Federer or Serena Williams, you will quickly lose motivation because the match is too difficult. Now consider playing tennis against someone who is your equal. As the game progresses, you win few points and lose few. You have a good chance of winning, but only if you try really hard. Your focus narrows, distractions fade away, and you find yourself truly invested in the task at hand. This is a challenge of just manageable difficulty. It is a prime example of Goldilocks rule. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Martin's comedy career is an example of the Goldilocks rule in practice. Each year he expanded his comedy routine but only by a minute or two. He was always adding new materials, but he always kept a few jokes that were guaranteed to get laughs. There were just enough victories to keep him motivated, just enough mistakes to keep him working hard. When you're starting a new habit, it's important to keep the behavior as easy as possible so you can stick with it even when conditions aren't perfect. This is an idea we covered in detail while discussing the third law of behavioral change. Once a habit has been established, however, it is important to continue to advance in small ways. These little improvements and new challenges keep you engaged. And if you hit perfect zone just right, you can achieve a flow state. Flow state is the experience of being in the zone and fully immersed in an activity. Scientists have tried to quantify the feeling. They found that to achieve a state of flow, a task must be roughly 4% beyond your current ability. In real life, it's typical, not feasible, to quantify the difficulty of an action in this way. But the core idea of the Goldilocks rule remains working on challenges with just manageable difficulty, something on the parameter of your ability. Seems crucial for maintaining motivation. Improvement requires a delicate balance. You need to regularly search for challenges that push you to your edge while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. Behaviors need to maintain novel in order for them to stay attractive and satisfying. Without variety, we get bored, and boredom is perhaps the greatest villain of the quest for self improvement. How to stay focused when you get bored working on your goal. After my basketball career ended, I was looking for a new sport. I joined a weightlifting team, and one day an elite coach visited our gym. He had worked with thousands of athletes during his long career, including few Olympians. I introduced myself and we began talking about the progress of improvement. What's the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? I asked. What do really successful people do that most don't? He mentioned the factors you might know: genetics, luck, talent. But then he said something I wasn't expecting. At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over and over. His answer surprised me because it's a different way of thinking about work ethics. People talk about getting amped up to working on their goals, whether it's business or sports or art. You hear people say things like, it all comes down to passion, or you have to really want it. As a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus or motivation because we think that successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this coach was saying that you really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feeling of boredom. Mastery requires practice. The more you practice something, the more boring and routine it becomes. Once the beginner gains have been made and we learn that what we expect, our interests start to fade. Sometimes it happens even faster than that. All you have to do is hit the gym a few days in a row or publish a couple of blog posts on the time, and letting one day slip doesn't feel like much. Things are going well. It's easy to rationalize taking a day off because you are in a good place. The greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. Outcome becomes expected. And as our habits become ordinary, we start derailing our progress to seek novelty. Perhaps this is why we get caught up in a never ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one idea to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy. even if the old one was still working. As Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. Perhaps this is why many of the most habit forming products are those that provides continuous form of novelty. Video games provide visual novelty, phones provide sexual novelty, junk food provide culinary novelty. Each of these experiences offer continual elements of surprise. In psychology, this is known as variable reward. Slot machines are the most common real example. A gambler hits the jackpot every now and then, but not at any predictable interval. The pace of the rewards varies. This variance leads to the greatest spike of dopamine, enhances memory recalls, and accelerates habit formation. Variable rewards won't create craving. That is, you can't take a reward people are uninterested in, give it to them at a variable interval, and hope it will change their mind. But they are a powerful way to amplify the craving we already experience because they produce boredom. The sweet spot of desire occur at a 50-50 split between success and failure. Half of the time you get what you want, half of the time you don't. You need just enough winning to experience satisfaction and just enough wanting to experience desire. This is one of the benefits of the following Goldilocks rule. If you're already interested in a habit, working on challenges of just manageable difficulty is a good way to keep things interesting. And you wouldn't want them to. If Google only delivered a useful research results some of the time, it would switch to a competitor pretty quickly. If Uber only picked up half of my trips, I would doubt I'll be using that service much longer. And if I floss my teeth each night and only sometimes ended up with a clean mouth, I think I'll skip it. Variable rewards or not, no habit will stay interesting forever. At some point, everyone faces the same challenge on the journey of self improvement. You have to fall in love with boredom. We all have goals that we would like to achieve and dreams that we would like to fulfill, but it doesn't matter what you are trying to become better at. If you only do the work when it is convenient or exciting, then you'll never be consistent enough to achieve remarkable results. I can guarantee you that if you manage to start a habit and keep sticking to it, there will be days when you feel like quitting. When you start a business, there will be days when you don't feel like showing up. When you are at the gym, there will be sets that you don't feel like finishing. When it's time to write, there will be days that you don't feel like typing, but stepping up when it's annoying or painful or draining to do so. That's what makes the difference between a professional and an amateur. Professionals sticks to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what is important to them and work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off course by the urgencies of life. David Kane, an author and meditation teacher, encourages his students to avoid being fair weather meditator. Similarly, you don't want to be fair weather athletes or a fair weather writer or a fair weather anything. When a habit is truly important to you, you have to be willing to stick to it in any mood. Professionals take action when the mood isn't right. They might not enjoy it, but they find a way to put the step up. There have been a lot of sets that I haven't felt like finishing, but I have never regretted doing the workout. There have been a lot of articles I haven't felt like writing, but I've never regretted publishing on schedule. There had been a lot of days I felt like relaxing, but I've never regretted showing up and working on something that was important to me. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by the doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. Chapter summary. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. The greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. As habit becomes routine, they becomes less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored. Anyone can work hard, but when they feel motivated, it's the ability to keep going When work isn't exciting, it makes the difference. Professionals stick to the schedule, amateurs let life get in the way.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and comment. And for the next chapter, please subscribe to Spotlight Heaven.